What? I got 141 and 2/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. Woo!
Wrestling Podcast. Let's go to start with this. He is broken in half.
And you are just a buck-toothed Nepo baby who ate dog food for a weird old man.
Yeah.
Just when they think they got the answers, I change the questions.
Did he do it? Cover!
Oh, and a kick out.
Unbelievable.
I will never retire.
I'm too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am the Macho King Randy Savage.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty.
It's me, Austin. Whoa!
Bang! Jacob 5-2 is all gas. No brakes with it. Yada mean fire!
I said WWE stands for.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out. Click subscribe to show your support. Hey, look, are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all users with a valid email and Facebook. You can still log in through Facebook. You got to get into Wrestler Unstoppable, app.wrestlerunstoppable.com. It is addictive, highly addictive. You get to create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline PLEs, even build your own corporation from the ground up, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now, totally free. Look, if you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family and you want your name in the shout-outs like John in Texas and my newest Patreon, Emily, then you got to pop over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Don't forget loyalty rewards. $15 a month contributor, you get to co-host a show with me. $7.50 a month, I'll put you into a drawing to also co-host with myself. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this show episode, I should say, of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, something you'd like me to talk about in a future episode, the only way for me to know that is for you to, give me a shout. The Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160, and I will get to those questions, comments, concerns, or whatever it is in a future episode. Tonight, we're going to review some of what we saw on Raw last night, talk about the news of the day. And look, the wrestling world has been a buzz for over a week now, talking about all these talent cuts and whatnot. I find it fascinating that we see the eradication of half the roster. I shouldn't say that. It's not quite that many, but 28 people have been cut by WWE, while at the same time, Triple H signs a brand new, much more lucrative contract. And if you think about it, this is the guy who is the head of creative who basically determines whether or not people are going to get booked or get television times or things of that nature. And if a talent is not getting over to where they are contributing enough to the show to justify the salaries that they're being paid, which is the word we're getting out of TKO, is that this was budgetary cuts based on that, then whose fault is that? Let's be honest, right? The New Day come out. They have the heel turn. They had nuclear heat. They turn on Big E. That was one of the most organic and over white heat segments in recent memory. And then it just dropped off the face of the planet. Never did anything with E again. They should have done something. He should have aligned himself with somebody else if he had to, just to do whatever he had to do. And nothing ever comes of it. That's not the New Day's fault. That is creative's fault. Look at every other talent on that list. Even the Aleister Black cut, right? We heard rumor that Aleister Black was supposed to be the one on the phone call to Cody Rhodes. Now, if you go back and watch the highlights from SmackDown, gosh, maybe early February-ish, I'll say, when they had the match with Aleister Black versus Randy Orton, there's a scene where there's a whip into the ropes. Aleister Black rolls over Randy Orton's back, and Randy Orton goes to go down into his pose where he hits the RKO. And as he does that, Aleister Black just sits down in his crisscross legs like he does, and it's like the perfect stare down. There was so much that could have been done with Aleister Black in a Randy Orton program, especially if he became almost a mentor-ish character and bringing out that dark side within Randy Orton heading into WrestleMania. It certainly wouldn't have gotten over better with the fans than the Pat McAfee nonsense did. They turned into such a debacle. that, let's be honest, if we're sticking with what he said, we'll never see him in a wrestling ring again, and that's almost a loss for WWE. I'm sure right now he doesn't feel like he wants to do this anymore. If he did, he never would have left in the first place. But after all that debacle, the way the fans reacted to it, and again, that's not Pat's fault. That falls on Ari Emanuel and Triple H and everybody else for booking that nonsense. So now you've lost a guy who's super passionate about wrestling, who the fans at one point were so behind. His entrance when he faced Austin Theory at Mania and then faced Vince McMahon before he took a stunner from Stone Cold was awesome. Absolutely legendary. Him getting mixed up with The Miz the next year. Like, he's done things where people were thoroughly into him. His match with Gunther was actually pretty solid. His Adam Cole, his first match, phenomenal stuff. It's not that the guy can't get over. It's that you promised something big and then gave us that. It's not a knock on Pat McAfee. I got so many people who I've seen in comments, not just on my show, but in other shows, where they complain about Pat McAfee and make it sound like he did something wrong. He did the best he could with what he was dealt. That falls on creative. So going back to what we're starting with, all these budgetary cuts that they talk about for cost efficiency, cutting millions of dollars of salary while giving Triple H a big increase is kind of absurd, because the only reason you wouldn't be getting that return is because you're not booking good storylines, and that's where you need to start. And I'm not saying to cut Triple H. What I'm saying is the guy shouldn't be getting a raise until he does what he's supposed to do effectively so that his talents don't need to be cut. Now, look, I've heard people say that you had to cut talent to make room for up-and-coming talent. No, you don't. Here's what we have learned from WWE. NXT, for a period of time, especially during the black and gold era, was as good or better than anything else WWE had on television. Anything. And that was booked by Triple H predominantly back then. When you look at what they do with these other brands, NXT has evolved. It is no longer a developmental company. That's what Evolve is, no pun intended. Or that's what LFG is. So if you're going to continue to have these programs and you purchase AAA, you have plenty of opportunities to push your talent. Diversify, split them up, send them to different companies, put just enough bigger stars on each show. They can all be legitimate intellectual properties while also being breeding grounds for main roster talent of the future. But when you're going to cut people, and the word coming out is the pay cuts aren't anything new with WWE. Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio, talking about how this happens all the time. He did say that there was a prominent star, not a top-tier guy, but a prominent star who was offered a pay cut of 50% and took it. And he actually mentioned, he said, I got a quote here, it says, I know one guy who, in this situation, he could go to AEW and make a lot of money with AEW, but he did take a pretty big pay cut to stay. And someone whose career was pretty much, the reason you would be asked to renegotiate is because the contract you signed when they perceived you as being far more valuable than they perceive you as being now. That is the bare bones of what's going on here. We signed the New Day last year to lucrative 5-year contracts, and now they're not worth it. Well, why? What did you book for them in the last 9 months that made any purpose or sense? Did you ever reintegrate Big E? No. That would have got a pop immediately. You want to talk about pushing product. Look, you're not going to move a lot of bootios when you make them bad guys to begin with. If you're going to make them bad guys, you could actually sell a ton of merchandise if you put them into a good program. Look at their tag team division now. R-Truth and Damian Priest, the Usos, the Vision, and after that there's like 19 teams that are from AAA or the equivalent, whether it's, LWO or Americanos, or now the Creeds being the other version of Americanos, like all that nonsense, and American Alpha, Alpha Academy, all this, it's all like Viking Raiders, it's all B-level talent. There's no premium tag teams now, and at least the New Day brought some credibility, they and the Usos, to make the division feel like something. And I could take like the Vision being champion and stuff like that. Those 3 teams are about all you had. You got rid of the Machine Guns, they were solid. You just bring back Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, and you bring back the Street Profits. I guess they bolstered the division a little bit, but you already had them under contract. That's not something new. In a lot of ways, that almost feels old. This, in my opinion, this pay cut, and apparently there's many talents being asked to take significant pay cuts, and some of them were told they only had 2 days to make a decision. And that maybe that's why we saw some of the people being cut who did get cut. Now, going on from that, there are other reports out there that there may be more cuts coming, and 2 names that have been floated, and I am not reporting this as fact. I'm saying that there are people posting online in various outlets that theorize that we could be seeing somebody like LA Knight or Bayley get cut. Now, I hope not. Both are incredible. Both deserve all their kudos. Bayley should be a lifer, even though I don't think those exist anymore. And LA Knight has still never gotten to reach his maximum potential. I actually suspect he may be the one who took the pay cut. In a lot of ways, that would make a lot of sense to me. They must have paid him a ton, especially after he did the thing in Saudi Arabia with Roman, and he's gotten over like Rover. No matter how many times they try to bury him, the fans just love him, but they're paying him a ton of money. And so I would not be surprised if he's somebody they ask to take a pay cut. Maybe he takes it because he doesn't want to have to go reestablish himself in AEW, or maybe he doesn't want to work the style of a Kenny Omega or a Kyle Fletcher or something like that, Will Ospreay. I don't know, but to me, this is not a good sign because nobody should feel safe anymore. Not even the Romans and the Codys and everything else, because if it's just about numbers, then who cares? I did see that, I believe it was Sean Ross Sapp said, there's a 50% chance that Kairi Sane comes back just for Backlash. That to me is insane. The chances are real. The people want her back. She was going to be, in my opinion, the greatest thing coming out of that three-way triangular feud because she could have emerged as her own star after turning on Asuka and just rising through the stratosphere. She was primed for that, and they gave up on her. I see that they're also talking to Xavier Woods about coming back and giving him a Tyler Breeze type of deal so he can still do his streaming and doesn't do as much in the ring and cut the amount of money, but give him opportunities to keep his revenue streams and whatnot. I don't foresee him necessarily doing that. I think they just want to make sure both guys don't show up in AEW, he and Kofi, which I actually kind of hope they do. And go there and kill it and show WWE that they screwed up because they did. This was a mess up. Now, that being said, we're going to get to Raw. I thought Raw, first off, the opening of Raw was phenomenal. The very brief interaction between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, awesome callback. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. And special shout out to the crowd last night. This was one of the best crowds I've seen all year for an episode of Raw. Fantastic, great energy, great chants, great vibe, totally locked in, tuned in. This was awesome stuff. Not loving all the Braun Breaker stuff. Like, Roman's in the back, going to walk out. Seth comes in, tells him to get out of his way, play his music. He walks out, and then seconds later, Braun Breaker comes running out. That means that Braun Breaker was in the back and walked right past Roman Reigns also, who he speared at the Rumble a couple years ago, is potentially a future feud we'd all love to see. So I didn't love that. The thought process behind it seems really stupid, but at the same time, love that the two of these guys are finally getting to mix it up after all their injuries. I just don't like all the sneak attacks and all that nonsense. Just have them go out and fight. Now, from there, let's talk about the other good things I saw on Raw. I love what they're doing with Liv and Roxanne because I'm hoping this is a slow burn. We got to get somebody else for Liv to work with in the short term so that she could take a program leading up to SummerSlam. At SummerSlam, I would love to see Roxanne Perez dethrone Liv Morgan and become the new women's champion. She's a prodigy. They use that word all the time. It's true. It's accurate for her. I would love to see her get her flowers and opportunity to be champion. She came up from NXT after being NXT Women's Champion and really has done nothing but this tag team division, which at some point you got to get tired of that. Do you give her the Intercontinental Championship for a short run? I don't see how. Not right now, at least. So what do you do with her? I think she's absolutely capable of carrying the banner as the women's champion, and I would love to see her and Liv mix it up. Obviously, it's going to happen at some point, but I'd actually like to see her dethrone Liv at SummerSlam, or maybe a little later. Maybe we could even wait till Survivor Series. I don't know. But I think that was a very bright spot on the show. Now, the Sol Ruca thing, coming out and getting involved in Becky Lynch, signing her contract. I hated that she blundered to Soul Snatcher in the corner at the end of the segment, but I do love this as an opening feud, so long as Becky retains. I'm tired of having call-ups think about the logic here. You're such a great talent in NXT that you didn't win the Women's World Championship there. You're going to come right to the main roster and beat a legendary performer like Becky. That would be a problem for me. I love putting him in a strategic position to look great on TV. I love bringing him to the main roster and giving him opportunities. But I don't love giving them a championship right away. I really don't. Again, going back to Roxanne. Roxanne's been waiting all this time to get anything on the main roster beyond these tag titles that we all know are outside championships that don't really mean anything anyways. Maybe right now might be the most important they've been in quite a long time since the Naomi and Mercedes walkout, Sasha walkout. This might be the most valuable they've been in a long time because they've been booked much stronger, but still aren't considered on the same level as the men's tag team championship. So that's not something for Roxanne, in my opinion. So Roxanne deserves this before Sol Ruca coming up. And I love Sol Ruka's work. I think she's phenomenal. I think the Soul Snatcher is one of the best finishers in the business right now, certainly for the women. But I love this as a feud, like I said, so long as Becky is not the one who wins the match, or is the one who wins the match. I apologize. The open challenge for Obafemi, got to go there. Otis as an opponent is the right thing to do if you're trying to build this almost like a Goldberg thing. Feed him all these like B-tier talents until you decide who is that premium star that we're going to put him in the ring with to really have a big blow-off match. And I don't really know who you sacrifice to Oba at this point. Does Brock come back for a retirement match? Does Brock come back for Gunther? It looks like Gunther is going to be doing something else with Cody Rhodes at this point if you were watching SmackDown. So I don't think Gunther and Brock is going to happen at this point. There was word that Gunther was supposed to have a program with LA Knight. That's what they were supposed to do, and then they went away from that to put him over on SmackDown and work with Cody. So it leaves LA Knight with nothing to do. That's why I'm hoping they don't cut him. And then where do we go from here with Oba? So this solid match, I really wish he would have picked up Otis for the powerbomb without the use of the turnbuckle. But Otis is a big boy. Okay, I get it. There are people giving him a whole lot of attitude online about how that was like a terrible way to do it. I don't agree. Anybody out there actually lift a 300-400 pound guy up over their head in a high power bomb situation? He still got him up. He still was able to do the power bomb. I was still impressed with his power and his tenacity and just the presence that he brings to the ring. I loved it. I have no problem with what they did, who they did, how they did it. It would have been that much more special if he was able to lift him up and do that powerbomb without the assistance of the turnbuckle. But, again, I'm not complaining. I think it was very, very solid. And look, I get it. The Americano 6-man was decent. It was okay. All the other segments and backstage stuff was okay. But I got to get to the main part of the show. Jacob Fatu, Roman Reigns, very good back and forth. I do think Jacob is starting to sound a little repetitive. Roman, too, in a lot of ways. This is clearly not the same level of mic work as he had with CM Punk. Who, by the way, if I'm throwing out a quick prediction, because why not? I'll do a prediction episode later in the week, but I'm throwing this one out there now. Betting odds say that CM Punk may be Danhausen's partner for this match against The Miz and Kit Wilson this weekend. I would love that. I think that'd be awesome. But in a weird way, I almost hope it's not that because I'd like to see Punk in a more substantial role. He's that level of player. But back to Fatu and Roman Reigns. Solid work, solid stuff. I wish they'd stop being so repetitive on the microphone. I love Roman talking about how he's feeding his whole family, whereas Jacob is kind of only focused on his nuclear family. I couldn't believe he spit out how many kids Jacob has. That's kind of crazy. But I love the physicality of this. Jacob is believable. I love that Roman got some shots in and Jacob didn't just run through him like a knife through butter because that's kind of where they were leading with this. And then eventually he does get the upper hand. I hate it that the table didn't break. I think it would have been a much better visual. But, hey, those things happen sometimes in wrestling. But all in all, very good show. And a lot of that credit doesn't go to WWE. It goes to you fans. The people who were in the arena that night, they were chanting their heads off, having a great time, really, really, really supporting the product. Kudos to them, and I'm that fool who didn't even look up what city they were in last night, so I apologize. But whoever that was, y'all are rock stars, man. Amazing crowd, great reactions to Raw, and I hope everybody else had as much fun watching it as I did. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks to Suno for creating the music and sound effects I use in the show. Today's show sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college or university life, maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking some time with us today. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.